let's start with people who are just thinking about investing. Let's say, somebody who has, 20, 30 lakhs rupees of annual income, has some surplus, and starting to open an account, at Zerodha and start investing. What's the best place which is just consider index fund initially, a debt, mutual? Like, what's a easy, safe way without, learning too much?
I mean, I think like the first thing I think everyone should have is an insurance policy.
Right.
Like people, we all overestimate ourselves in life. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I could get out from here and I could crash into something and I could not be there. I think your family needs to be covered. So I think the first part of financial, and think about finances is to cover for your worst case outcomes.
And just plain term life, or those financial products which have term life and some.
No, it's just term. I mean, I think if you have dependents,
yeah,
and these dependents are expected, they're living off a certain earning of yours. I think they need to be covered first. Right. I mean, it's I think like when you think about money, right? What I've realized after making a lot of mistakes is the idea is to put yourself in situations where you can be rational when issues happen, right?
Yeah,
and you can remain rational only when the risks are covered as much as possible.
Yeah.
So one is term, which is, I think the right way to look at it is, if something were to happen to you, if that money was at a bank fixed deposit, can it generate enough return to cover for your family or whoever is your dependent?
So about 10 times of,
correct,
cover of your current annual income.
Something like that. And it's not very expensive to do it. It's I think a lot of people shy away from doing it because it feels like, it'll not generate them return.
Yeah.
But the thing is, just knowing that the risk is covered gives you better mind space to take more rational decisions with the rest of the things, right? Similarly with health, right? It's almost, I think, today, one health incident puts majority of the people below poverty line, right? In the sense, you can be in debt forever, etc. Right. So it's a no-brainer not to have a health insurance policy, right? So I think anyone who's talking anything about money, finances before investing is to cover the risk. At least two has to be covered.
Got it.
Right. And it doesn't matter who you are. I mean, unless people like you and me, as in, if you had like large enough outcomes that money is sitting in the bank. So even if you're not around, right? I mean, if not for that, I think everyone else need to be doing this. Third is, when you say, I have X amount of money now, I need to be optimizing for returns. If you keep money in a bank account, you are unlikely to create wealth out of it, right? And I think the simplest thing to do is an index fund, right? As in, but every time I say it, people are like, "Would you do it with index fund?" I wouldn't, right? Because I have like 15, 20 years of experience doing this. But I think the right starting point is an index fund, right? Because once you get in, you'll start tracking the markets, you'll learn more. Maybe then you can go from, the safest option, which is an index option, to maybe a sectoral fund, and etc. But I think the good starting point is to be as safe as possible.
And guideline of percentages, debt versus, I
mean, that the 100%, 100 minus age rule, right? I mean, that's simple, like.
Oh, explain. A lot of it might not have heard of it. What?
No, I mean, if you're 30 years of age, 100 minus 30, so 70%. Put it in equity, and 30% have it in debt in some form.
Right.
Some long-term debt, some short-term debt. So so when I say long-term, short-term, like a long-term could be like a 10-year GSEC.
Right.
A short-term could be a bank FD. Right. I think everyone should also have some liquid capital.
Right.
So a bank FD can also potentially act as something that you can tap into.
Right.
If there was a job loss, there was like one of those issues. I think everyone should have at least like a year's worth of. That short-term debt, which is, like money in the bank account, which can cover for your 1 year running cost.
Right.
Like I said, no one knows, economy and what can happen. So, I think this is like a good starting point. But I think, as you learn, as you spend more time, you can start doing fancier things. So if someone wants to decide to do short-term trading in the markets, you can probably, say, what, I'll allocate 5% of my portfolio for short-term trading. I'll do short-term trading with it. And I won't allocate more unless I make money, right? Because the problem is that short-term trading is it gives you a lot of dopamine hits.
Right, yeah.
Right? It is, when you're right, it keeps this, the thing is, most of our lives, we're doing boring stuff, right? And especially people who are employed in jobs, etc. And trading brings excitement. The thing is, you should accept the fact that, this is, it's exciting you. That's why you're doing it. And for most people, it's that, right? And like, we were just talking before, right? As in, like, I'm on social media. Of course, the excuse is that it helps the business.
Yeah.
But I also understand it gives me dopamine, right? Because when I say people like, people share, there is excitement getting created, right? I keep questioning myself, like, how much percentage am I on social media for excitement?
Right.
How much am I in it for, real business reasons, right? So, I think people have to, be self-aware and question these things.
Right.
So the thing about money is you can very easily get carried away. One stupidity is all it'll take. Right? But one of these days you've lost some money trading and you say, let me take my 30% of, whatever this debt and put it into it and try to recover. I mean, I think those are the kind of mistakes.
So having some of these very strong guardrails, which you not breach no matter what happens, it can protect you against some of this too.
Yeah. I mean, but the thing is, the big challenge in an online world where you can almost instantly make mistakes. Like, these guardrails also are very...
Who is going to hold you accountable,
Absolutely. Like, for example, when I was younger, when there was no Swiggy, Zomato, etc. In the middle of the night, if I felt like binging, there was nothing to binge on.
Right, yeah, correct.
Right? Today, you take an app and call ice cream and it'll be there, So it's not that. So even if say at Zerodha, you have this long-term portfolio that you have thought that you'll not access ever.
Right.
And suddenly, you're losing money in trading.
Right.
How do you safeguard this, right? As in, it's really hard. I think it's very easy for us to say,
right,
don't become irrational and to stupidity, but it's become really hard in today's world to avoid, just all these, making life easier for people.
Right.
In the process, also made it easier to make mistakes.
I think first and foremost thing, and probably the only thing to keep in mind, you incorporate strength training to age gracefully. It's as simple as that, Mukesh. For me, it's just that. Most people are literally fall off their chair when I tell them I'm 43. I know some part of it is genetics, to like maybe look a certain way or whatever. But this is my hard work. I wake up every day at 5 a.m. and I show up because I want to look a certain way, and more than look, I want to feel a certain way. When my daughter turns 20, I'll be 60. And if I don't have the same energy that I have today, I'll feel miserable about it. I want to feel, have the same energy to go wherever she wants to go. And I generally want to age gracefully. So I feel like looking at my mother and a lot of my aunts back home, they've been so active, doing all the household chores, etc., etc. But now they don't have the strength to walk properly. So I think those years were different. Everyone would say after 60, old age sets in, so you're going to have aches and pains. But I think it's very different. I mean, I look at women who are 80 doing 80 kg deadlift,
right.
Not in this country, a different country, but why can't we incorporate that for our women? Make them more independent at 80. At 90, there are women picking up weights and, doing sit-ups. I'm like, if they can do it at that age, I know these are one-off maybe, there are not too many doing it.
No, but they're inspiring examples. So when you are 80, you'll be doing 80 kg deadlift?
Yes, Mukesh, I will be. And that's my goal, because it's not only me teaching my daughter the right thing, but there are so many. Today, there are 25-year-old and 26-year-old girls who, if I had a child at the right age, it should probably be 25. But I'm saying, these kids come up to me when I'm maybe at a coffee shop or something and say that, you know what, we follow you on Instagram, you're very inspiring. For me, that's a huge win, because I'm not just inspiring women of 35, 40, 45, but I'm able to actually let a 25-year also think the importance of weight training.
Right.
For me, today, it's about managing your hormone health.
Right.
Women, that's what you need to worry about. After 40s, like you get into the perimenopausal stage and menopause stage and etc. So one is hormone health, the other is muscle mass and your joint functionality. If you want these two things to be in a great place as you age, and aging is inevitable, right? You have to pick up weights. And I'm not saying pick up heavy weights. That's to each one's body type and ability, need, everything. Pick up some weights. Light weights are heavy, but you should be lifting weights.
So Rahul, you were talking about, letting your hair down and just having easy day also. And we have obviously, all of us have watched on television being, this intense player with, inhuman power of concentration on the field and so on. Always very calm, like never been into any controversy or showing any emotion. And then we saw you in this CRED ad where you were basically became Indra Nagar ka gunda and just, really brought out that angry persona, which looked very authentic on screen. Did you have to practice a lot for it, or it was just, bursting to come out?
Probably bursting. No, but it was an interesting one. I mean, I obviously just given the script to that, and I was really wary. I wasn't really sure about how it would go. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. Sometimes, you just let yourself go and have some fun with it. And luckily, it sort of came out looking okay. It wasn't too bad. I was telling that director, I said, this comes out, either I'm going to give you 2 calls. Either I'm going to be screaming at the end of the phone, or, I'm going to say it was pretty okay. But yeah, no, it was fun. It was fun to do it. Sometimes it's just fun to do things that, you can do differently. And I think even in that, I think over the years, it's not just that ad, but I think just I've done and worked with so many different people again, I've been lucky because I've been a cricketer, and now it's like I've probably done my first ad when I was in 1996. So it's been 27 years and since I've been doing this. And I've got to meet a bunch of really creative people in that field as well. I think these opportunities in sport have actually given me this incredible, it's just given me an incredible opportunity to meet so many different people in so many different fields, and I think I've met and got to know people in that field. I've just traveled the world and again, just that curiosity. If you're curious, you ask a few questions and you just get to meet so many interesting people who do so many interesting things. I mean, we go abroad and, you go to, you're always invited to high commission functions or India, some places, and you get to meet so many people from the Indian Foreign Service. So you have a passion for wildlife and you go there and you're lucky to meet so many people involved in that and create sort of. And I think that's the lucky thing as someone who, if you're lucky to be sort of, hate to use the word famous, but you're lucky to sort of be a well-known personality. You just have that ability, I think, to be able to just interact and meet so many different people. And I think, I'm just really grateful for that. There's so much I've learned from so many of these interactions just outside of a sporting field and sporting people that's shaped really who I am.
Yeah, no, that credit definitely touched a nerve. I think people really wanted to see you break the character and be in that avatar.
The Secret, which came out in 2004, the law of manifestation and, all of that stuff.
Okay, we'll come back to this. Let's talk about that as well.
Yeah.
Why don't you explain what the Secret is and why it is so toxic? I mean, it's very popular in India. I know.
Extremely powerful. I mean, it's so popular here because, as I said, it's a very, very seductive idea for a people and a society and a culture that has felt oppressed by its social institutions. I know that India is going to be drawn towards individualism and already is because we lived in such a collectivist socialist world which suppressed individuality. Mm-hmm. That had its own problems. Yeah. And a great many people, especially this generation, will never want to, and I don't blame them, nobody wants to go back to that place. So when you were there where all your ideas and who you were subjugated by society and you had to live for others, that kind of person from obviously most of us in India are going to be very drawn to the idea that, hey, you can create your own life. You're the master of your own destiny. You can, all of these ideas, right? Now, why is it wrong and why is it toxic? So The Secret firstly came out in about 2004, if I'm not mistaken. I was in the US. I was practicing as a psychiatrist and I was there when, Rhonda Byrne was marketing it, and the best marketing I've ever seen. Everyone was drawn to it. And I had patients who came up and they dropped out of therapy for a while and then they came back and I said, what happened? They said, I read the book, The Secret, and it is amazing. It makes me, I have never felt so empowered in my life. But fast forward a few months and I started to see the problems. One lady told me, I'm leaving my husband. And I said, you had a good marriage. What happened? And she said, Doc, listen, I want a Mercedes in my driveway. I've been manifesting this all day, all month, last 3 months. It's my husband who's negative and he doesn't have the right energy. And she's like, that's why I don't have my Mercedes. And that's why I'm going to dump this guy. So people started policing themselves. They started policing others, getting everyone to think positive, etc. And it was a nightmare. I saw people going through a lot of depression, anxiety. And now, unfortunately, Mukesh, I'm seeing it here. And I know as soon as I start saying something negative about the law of manifestation, I'm going to have a lot of people on your podcast who are not going to be happy with that. It's basically taking non-duality, which was aham brahmasmi, and adding a strong tadka of American narcissism.
Right.
Because you see, aham brahmasmi now means the universe is at my feet.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. If I'm the universe, and if two people are going through the red, going to a traffic signal, both want a green light, both are manifesting the green light. Is the universe going to arbitrate and see who is manifesting most? It's ridiculous. I mean, we know it.
I think simply stating, I think, rather, I think working
But
hard.
it can be used in a good way because, as you said, thinking positively, looking for opportunities, having an optimistic mindset. These are things that believing in manifestation can help you get. But you can get that without the toxic side effects of this. That's what
to still put in a lot of effort. Like when nothing happens, on its own, it cannot happen, right? It's
I mean, you know better than anyone that, to create anything of value, it takes so much persistence, dedication. I'm sure you've gone through a lot of reversals in life, right? I wonder if you had the law of manifestation, if you believed it when you were like 28.
I was going to say, anyone who believes in law of manifestation just needs to try entrepreneurship. It teach you within few years that, what it takes to make something happen.
That's right.
Sometimes, it's like almost, sometimes you try so much, still nothing happens, right? It's just the nature of things. The bigger the odds are, you have to be at it. You have to iteratively keep improving, 1% improvement every day.
Right.
Wait for the right lucky breaks,
Right.
Sometimes you do get these lucky breaks, and then, but you still have to notice that you have a lucky break, you need to make the most of it and so on.
Right.
So absolutely, I think, there is limited utility in cultivating right kind of belief system.
Correct.
And focusing more on a glass half full rather than half empty. But anything taking beyond that, I think it's just toxic, I think is the right word. And people pay huge price for it over a long period of time.
Absolutely.
We had many conversations about whole product craftsmanship. And I think from what I know of your journey, you've always obsessed about product. Right? So when did you start thinking about, product is really important for you as an entrepreneur, especially somebody, like you said, you became very good at selling. And so, sometimes, you can, if you're good at selling, you can sell anything. Your product doesn't need to be that good. Or you can sell first and figure it out later. Like when do you start making the switch that you said, product craftsmanship is really important for me?
I think I probably always had it. I don't know why I had it. Because I think when you appreciate good products, you want to be building that also, right? Like, therefore you keep finding flaws in it, and therefore, like, you want to fix everything that is not in order. I don't know, it's some kind of an obsession, OCD behavior of sorts. I don't know what causes that, but you will notice imperfections all the time, and you will want to say, this should be better, this should be better. And now, obviously, it's very hard to work with people like that because there is no end.
Right.
Nothing will ever be perfect. So what happens is, I think early on also, I remember when I was to sell like these mehndi cones, I would like have the best packaging, have the branding, put a name to it. There's a mehndi cone sold in few stores around. But I think this need to be noticeable, distinct, because people, when they buy something, they want to feel good about themselves, right? And like, why does the unpacking of Apple products give you this joy? Like, you can always just give basic product. And I'm surprised that it's such a small thing that people can copy, but they do terrible stuff with packaging, terrible stuff with onboarding, terrible stuff with that. And I'm not saying we are in the gold standard. We are also in the path to get there, but I just see people just miss out that opportunity in this need to chalo kuch karte hain fast.
So have you done anything in the way you've designed organization or reward system or culture at, CRED, which is somehow supporting, this spirit of product?
I think just having more people like me who believe in this, and they have the gatekeeping abilities to say this will not go.
So that's mostly interview process that you have to.
Yeah, like in Garage, we had also made a ad film to go along with that. Did not meet the bar. We spent a bunch of money on that. We did not ship it.
Right.
But imagine like 7-8 team members worked on that ad, made it, did not go. And they still did a good job of still doing a good GTM. They did a lot of interesting things because the main ad was stopped. The point is that when you have the bar, and the bar is constantly reminded. And there is a very, I don't know where it's very interesting. This is, everybody just makes this loose, but this is not very CRED-like. This is not CRED. This is not CRED. And there is no playbook to say, why is this not CRED? But osmosis, say people just get the bar very quickly. But every time you need somebody who demonstrates and role models it.
Right. And I think, yes, I don't know what's your point of view, but I feel like that product obsession is something that has long way to go in the larger Indian ecosystem. I think people are still a lot more problem focused, definitely scale focused, and sometimes customer obsession there, but product obsession that I want to build a product for the sake of inherent beauty, aesthetic, ease of use, less friction. That I think somehow probably, and if I compare Indian ecosystem with the Valley ecosystem, right? It came from very different heritage, from 60s, and the design, aesthetic, tech, all part of the same culture. And eventually I think this carried over to a lot of things. And most products achieve their scale because products were good, not because their marketing or their sales machinery or distribution also outstanding. So I feel that's one thing that definitely needs to evolve in the Indian ecosystem.
I think we will get there when we have enough role modeling that is happening, right? Like we are so lucky that many good companies, CPOs come in and join in our product team in not senior roles, right? Like, but they just want to be around good people. Sure. We see the best design talent getting attracted to CRED. Like we probably have 10, 12, 14 people who could easily be head of design of anything. But they just want to be around these people. And I think if you can attract a certain type and say, this is the bar.
Right.
Like so many times people, like we have seen in design, people make extraordinary content to apply for internship and like put it on the internet and like request to be allowed to come to CRED. I think if you become a desirable, so it attracts people like that, right? What you tolerate, what you don't tolerate, what you say, kid, we will not ship things that are not beautiful. And even if it means it's a delay, then it just forces that type of people, right? But the problem is not everybody sees beauty the same way, and I don't know why. And I don't know how to decipher that. But I think when is something looking okay and looking great, and I don't know how to bring that. I think we need to probably allow. Means probably I mean I make this a very general statement, but non-engineering talent to be in a dominant positions. So you need to bring people with different aesthetic, different taste. But I think the need for excellence is missing.
Right.
I think beauty is just a manifestation of that. But pride. Like I remember this beautiful thing that I read a story. I think Rajkumar Hirani talked about Vidhu Vinod Chopra once, saying that what is his method of getting scripts right? And he's like, you walk up to him and tell him that he'll say, so how do you rate your own script? And is it 9 on 10, 8 on 10? And if you're not up there, are you proud of it? He'll just stare it. So it's very interesting. If I've told you, Mukesh, are you proud of this?
Right.
And if you really are good at craftsmanship, you will say no.
Right.
Which means you can go back and work. If you say yes, but I can see that it's terrible. That means I cannot trust you as a craftsman, so I can let you go. But is there an inherent pride of work? So I think what I have noticed that good people, craftsman mindset, are trying to get the applause of their peers and the audience and not their bosses.
Getting into fitness is so complicated and so daunting for especially someone who has never worked out. So if you have to talk to somebody who has been sedentary all of his or her life, or maybe somebody who was active in high school years, college years, but now it has been 10 or 15 years, haven't really done anything to be physically active. How do I start my fitness journey?
I think first step in that case would be to start small and simple.
Right.
Don't do anything that you feel is going to be hard for you in the long run. I mean, eventually people will progress. When they work out consistently, they will not even realize that they become stronger. They are doing things that they once thought were impossible. So the first step would be to make sure that you have your probably, or if you want to go for a walk, you have your walking shoes.
Right.
Even if you don't end up going for the walk. Make sure that you put those walking shoes on in the morning, because that starts connecting exercise with your identity. So whether or not you go for a walk, you put the shoes on.
Right.
That's the first step. Once you've mastered that, make sure that you are going for that walk.
Right.
The framework that I follow for people who are completely starting out or people who are coming back after a long break is that if you are able to just do a leisure walk for 20 minutes without having to take a break. In reality, there are a lot of people who will end up taking break in a 20 minutes leisure walk also. Now, I don't want this to be at an intensity where you can't make a conversation. It needs to be at an intensity where, if you and I are walking, we are able to actually engage in a great conversation. So that intensity for 20 minutes. The moment you've hit that, it could be 5 minutes today.
Right.
Do 6 minutes tomorrow, do 7 minutes day after, and just go to 20 minutes. The moment you've achieved 20 minutes without having to break it is the time when you can actually start doing brisk walking.
Right.
That's also the time when you can start thinking of including some sort of mobility and strength training in your routine. Now, a great way would be to start with a very basic yoga. Surya Namaskar is like a full body mobility exercise.
Surya Namaskar is not basic.
I mean, it's by basic, what I mean is that you don't have to go to a gym for it.
Right.
You can do it. You can do it at home, and you don't have to do 108 Surya Namaskar. Just do one each side. But it starts somewhere. You need to make sure that your joints are moving.
And basically, Rishabh, you are this ultra fit athlete, and you keep going at 200 Surya Namaskar. I need to pull you back, man. And I'm talking about somebody who has never done anything. I think forward bend itself is an ordeal probably today. But I liked what you were saying. I think 10 to 20 minutes of leisurely walk, every person able to do, unless you have a major handicap. I think that's a great starting point. Then building from there, you go from 20 minute to 30-minute walk. Brisk walk is a great idea. And so those kind of, tools, I feel generally, even just sitting down on the floor and getting up, sitting down, getting up. One of the things I have started doing now in a lot of my meetings, I just stand. And you have seen me in the office, right? There's 20 people in the room. In my one corner, I'm just standing. And, and while you're standing, you're always shifting your weight from one leg to another. Blood circulation is better. You're burning some calories.
Correct.
I think there are a lot of these things, where people can just start being little mobile and active.
Yeah, I think that's one great example. I think you mentioned this in Hacking Health also. Right. Standing would burn X percentage more calories than sitting. I think fidgeting is a great way of burning.
I can start doing this now.
People who fidget a lot are generally, burning quite a bit of calories while at rest.
Right.
And are also generally on the leaner side because their caloric output is higher. So I think just sitting and fidgeting around is probably something that can be a good start that way. Taking just small walk breaks in between meetings can be a really good way of going about it. So if you're used to scheduling 60-minute meetings, schedule 50 minutes and take a 10-minute leisurely walk. A few hacks that people use is park your car a little far away.
Right. Yeah. Great idea.
So you end up walking up and down after parking and when.
I think walking and stairs are available to everybody any day, even if it's just one flight of stairs. That's a good way to start being active. And
just try not using the elevator. If it is, of course, 1 or 2 or 3 floors, just try to use the stairs.
I think walking stairs reminds me of so my father is quite has always been very active all his life, still quite healthy, and he used to go to his office on a cycle, and in the morning he will drive 5 kilometers, work for 4 hours, then lunch he used to come home again on the cycle. And at the time, I mean, at some point I used to feel sorry for him that why doesn't he have a scooter or a car and why he cycle. But in retrospect, I feel it was great for him. I think he was exercising physically using a cycle. Now cycling is also available to all of us, right? I mean, these are things which could be first step to start.
Exactly. This is something that I do generally after meals when I'm at office. There are these bikes and things at our office floor. So I just sit on one of those bikes and just easy pedal for whatever time I can make. Max 10 minutes. But if I have 5 minutes, I'll do it for 5 minutes. And I think this is what what you're also trying to hint towards is that don't go for all or nothing.
Right, exactly.
Even if it is 1 or 2 minutes of movement, it counts. And just make sure that you find the opportunities of doing something which is movement.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people get into a point where they haven't been active for a long period of time. So from there to go to gym for the first class is just a, hill they can never climb. So you need to start getting in the, pattern of movement and work your way towards getting into, so you can actually one day go to a gym or do something there.
Yeah, I think, that going to a gym is, of course, it's of course a big step for a lot of people. Something that I realized while I was at one of these family functions, that generally, I see people in my family otherwise getting a little more health aware. And I saw people were tracking a few number of steps.
Right.
And people who would, in my my extended family, people who would generally be a little more sedentary otherwise. And I'm used to seeing them being a little sedentary. They're like, after eating, just walking in that room, in the hotel room, up and down. And like, why? I want to complete my steps. And I think that's great. Because it started with just the awareness that I have to do these steps. So that, I think, worked as a good.
Yeah, steps are, great way for people to just get moving. And now with all the fitness tracker, every single phone also has the accelerometer, so you can track your steps, and people can start even starting with 5,000-6,000 steps a day, working towards 10,000 steps a day. And you can get, quite crazy with that. I had a colleague of mine at our digital, Madan. He apparently completed a whole marathon in his apartment, just running up and down the corridor, God knows how many hours. But, if he can do a whole marathon inside an apartment, I think people have no excuse to be able to do 5,000 or 10,000 steps, at least, in their living space. But let's go back to, I think, what you were starting to talk about, this whole rise of manufacturing, even things, cutting edge things such as, semiconductor fabs, etc. being done in India. So let's talk about that,
Let's think about other basic things like the real estate cycle, right? Because for most humans, most individuals and families, house is the biggest expenditure of their lives. So if you just add up, the amount we spend on, or an average family spends on food, on clothing, and you multiply it, say, by 30 years, that number is still a fraction of what it will cost you to buy a house in Bombay. Right? And so when you do that, you're committing a lot of money. And that's a very important part of expenditure.
Right.
Now, real estate construction in India has been stagnant to falling for nearly a decade. And now it's starting to turn. Right. So it should have turned in 2016, but then, RERA and demonetization forced another round of cleaning up. 2018 should have started, but then IL&FS went bust. 2020 it was supposed to have started when COVID hit. So it's already a cycle which is delayed by 5-6 years. So I think the next 4-5 years, and this is very important because in my view, this dragged down India's GDP growth by 1% a year for nearly a decade.
Right. Wow.
So as this cycle starts to normalize and turn, I think the opportunity size in terms of construction jobs, demand for construction materials, and general goodwill of getting into a bigger house, more productive house and all of that. And I think that will be very important. Now, coming to goods and services. So goods is a bit more detailed. So let me just focus on services.
Okay.
See, in the last 4 decades, we've created about 55 lakh software engineers in India. Right. I think this will double in the next 10 years.
Right.
Because the world needs a lot more software. Even if ChatGPT starts doing it, I think the people who can use ChatGPT to write software much better will. So I don't think this is going to destroy too many jobs. I think just improve productivity. And there's no other place where you can get engineers, right? So Eastern Europe, demographically challenged. No one wants to go to China. So in terms of large pool of engineers which are accessible, this is there. What has also happened on services is business services. 40% of the workforce of US-based consultants is now in India. So just as, when software was being disaggregated, right? So you take software requirements and deployments happen in the US, but the development and testing happens in India. This is the first 20-year process that we've been through. Now the process of consulting is being disaggregated, that you need people doing client-facing work there, but all the other presentation making, data crunching can happen in India. 40-45% of global banking work happens in India.
Right.
as I was telling you, there is a semiconductor fab which during the day is being run in Malta, at night is being run out of India.
Wow.
So what COVID has done, just like Y2K did for software, it has stress tested and accelerated the disaggregation of services and what can be done remotely.
Right.
So if you can do something sitting in Ohio or Iowa and your client is in New York, you can do it from Bangalore or Pune or Lucknow or Bhubaneswar, right? So, and this number is growing already very rapidly, right? So it can be, I think, a very large number in the coming years. So on the good side, there are a few areas where, see, goods, I said $24-25 trillion global goods exports. There's a lot of double counting where people do small value adds and keep moving around. In India, our total exports are about $450 billion, right? So it's not even, it's like
2% of global exports.
Yeah, 1.8%. And it has grown up a bit in the last 2 years, but it's still very small. 24-25% of global goods exports is electronics. About $6 trillion.
Right.
In HS code 84, 85, that's whatever is included. In India, that number in 2018, or from India, that number was $8 billion. Right? So we were absolutely absent in this global trade. That number is now closer to 25, but there's still a rounding error. I think in the next 3-4 years, this will be over $100 billion. So India is now starting to participate in this value chain.
Right.
Some of it is a very natural spillover from China.
Correct.
Some of it because of China plus one. Some of it because the labor-intensive stuff now cannot be done in China. They're running out of workers.
Yeah.
And Vietnam and other countries cannot absorb because they don't have the scale.
Right.
So a lot of it will happen to India, in India. And now the supply chains are also, and this is a process that Japan went through in the 60s, Korea went through in the 70s, Taiwan went through in the 80s, China in the last 2 decades. So this, India is now starting off on that path. So you start with assembly, then you start with phone assembly, then you start doing camera module assembly, battery module assembly, display module assembly. Then slowly the lenses start getting manufactured, the image sensors, so all of those things start happening. And it can be a very major driver of exports from India. Autos and auto components, the transition to EVs has meant that China is starting to really do dramatically well. And we need to latch on. We need get some lucky breaks there. But I think on auto components also, the companies that started off as Maruti indigenized its production.
Yeah.
Right, all the component suppliers are now starting to get global scale.
Right.
And as India's scale of car manufacturing just picks up, you will start seeing the Indian auto component makers starting to have more to invest in R&D, starting to become more cutting edge. And any industry disruption is actually fascinating, very, very useful for them. On things like chemicals, which are another big area of global goods trade, there is India had a disadvantage in the cost of capital, cost of energy, and cost of compliance.
Right.
So even though our compliance norms in legal terms may have been very lax, meaning not legal terms, but the enforcement was very lax, there was a very natural enforcement because of the political reality. So if you went and told politicians that, look, Europe is really struggling with its cost of energy, there's a lot of business that can move to India, the first response would be, villagers complain. So what the political system was enforcing was a very high standard of compliance.
Correct.
And that, because China was not following that, so that was a disadvantage for Indian manufacturers. But as China has tightened it up, India's disadvantage is gone. Cost of energy, because Europe no longer has access to cheap Russian energy, India's disadvantage is gone. And Indian companies have become bigger. So there are many sectors where, I tend to think of these things as bottom up. So there are many sectors where I think the competitive environment and the competitive positioning of Indian companies is far better than it was a decade back. So even on things like manufacturing, and with all of this infrastructure improvement, the fact that I think access to trained manpower is going to be a lot easier. I think all of these are should mean that our share of global goods trade.
You also need to be very cautious about who is building habit in your life. What I mean by that is all the literature about behavioral psychology that we know is also known to all the technology companies in the world, especially social media, video gaming, instant communication. These companies also employ world's top-notch behavioral psychologists. They understand what it takes to build a habit. They understand the cue, action, reward cycle. Everything that happens to your phone has been very intelligently designed for you to consume more and more content. Because the more content you consume, the more time you pick up your phone during the day. That's your attention that is directed towards your phone. And that is the attention the search companies and social networking companies can monetize. That's why you see those annoying ads all the time, because that's effectively you're trading your attention for, you get to watch free content, which is paid for by the ads. So pretty much these companies are capturing your attention, mining your attention, and selling it to advertisers. And these apps are really good, through intelligent notification. You have push notifications, you have, all notifications are red because the red catches our attention. If the notification were blue, you will not pay that much attention. It's no coincidence that traffic light is red because authorities want you to pay attention to red light. Similarly, notifications are red because the app makers want us to pay attention to our notifications. The things we consume, you will have these snacking companies creating all these ads, which almost make it a virtue out of having a evening 4 p.m. snack, as if, having a sugary snack at the time is the best way to enjoy your life. So a lot of advertisers, lot of app makers, they hack into the same circuitry which goes into building habits. A lot of people over a period of time, built up a habit of having a morning cereal. This cereal used to be very high glycemic index, carb which will get absorbed very quickly, spike up your glucose levels in the bloodstream, and they were touted as a healthy habit. These companies will promote that breakfast is the most important habit that one can have, which is absolutely not true. You can eat whenever you want. We'll have a very detailed podcast on the right way to design your diet. But keeping in mind that lot of habits that we acquire is because of advertisement we are exposed to, certain kind of lifestyle that we see on YouTube or Instagram, the how various apps are designed to get our attention, give us that instant dopamine hit so that we crave that action again and again. So it's very important to guard yourself. You can choose to build whatever habits make sense to you, which enhances quality of your life. But be watchful of, are you letting other people build habits for you?